Planning Commission to order. And Ms. Gleichman, would you please take the roll?
Commissioner Mills?
Present.
Commissioner McCombs?
Present.
Commissioner Ryan?
Present.
Commissioner Martin?
Here.
Commissioner Stoneman?
Here.
Commissioner Jarecki?
Here.
Commissioner Courier?
Okay. It's not exactly on the agenda, but would you please rise with me for the Pledge of Allegiance?
Madam Chair,
Yes.
since we just took attendance, I've a comment, a reminder to all of us, perhaps a little bit self-serving since I'm going to be out of the country for a couple of meetings in the next couple of months. Since we adopted rules on attendance, attendances that the commission doesn't, I assume we would follow a similar protocol to the city council, such that absences that are not excused by vote are unexcused absences. So reminder to all of us not to get that clock running faster than you want it to be.
And so is there a motion tonight?
I move that Mr. Courier's absence be excused.
Okay. Motion by Mr. Stoneman
Second.
and seconded by Mr. Mills to excuse Mr. Courier's absence tonight. Any discussion? Otherwise, signify by saying aye if you're in favor.
Aye.
And anybody opposed? Motion passes. All right, number 2 on the agenda is minutes. And I see we don't have any minutes, but I want to just double check. I think if I've got them right, I think we have 6 minutes plus tonight, 7 minutes.
Yes.
Starting at 8:20, 8:24
Yep.
due.
Yes, that's true. And I'm almost done with that first one and then working on the rest.
Okay. Okay. Item number 3 is public comments. This is a time for anybody in the audience or online in the audience would like to speak. You are welcome to come up to the podium, state your name and your city, and we will be happy to listen to you for 3 minutes. And seeing no one, I'm going to move on. Public hearings, there is no public hearing tonight, but there will be a public hearing next week. Okay, so that brings us to number 5A, 2025 Comprehensive Plan Update, Housing Action Plan Strategies Discussion. And Ms. Grage.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Libby Grage, Planning Manager in the Planning Community and Economic Development Department. And I think staff was going to suggest that we potentially reorder the items on the agenda. And the reason for that would be so that we can make sure to have enough time to get through any remaining questions on the future land use map amendments and the land use and housing goals and policies before we get into the housing action plan.
So I do have a question about that because this is a special meeting. I'm imagining it's fine to switch the order around. I know we can't add anything or change anything, but is that okay with the rest of you? Okay.
Aye.
Aye, okay. Ms. Grage, since we just received this updated here on our desks tonight, I know I haven't read the updated, and I don't know if others have. I know it came, I think, yesterday, so.
Yes, so there were a couple of public comments. Is that what you have? Okay. Yes, so there should be some public comments, and then there was an updated land use designation amendment document. Do you have those?
We have them.
But you haven't had an opportunity to look at them.
No, they were just sitting on our desks here. So, gentlemen, are you all right with walking through it?
I am, but just to try to keep my administration straight, when I picked up my packet on Monday afternoon, it was 19 pages shorter than it was last night. Is those 19 pages what was left on our desk today?
Possibly. We have, staff tries to provide public comments that we just get in on a rolling basis, you know, up to a couple minutes before the meeting. So you probably have a couple public comments like that. And then the document, the future land use designation document was put out, I think it was yesterday. We did an updated agenda to the Planning Commission and to the community so that they would have that information prior to the meeting. There are only 2 items on that document, you know, that are
changes?
right. And so if you were comfortable, you know, just taking a look at those, I could talk you through them.
Why don't we, let's just take a minute, because public comments are important, and I know I haven't read them. So if we could just take a few minutes right now, and let's skim at least those comments. And if you want to look at whatever changes are in here. give us another minute or so to just skim. And what you're asking for is item 5B or 5C? Which one are we doing first?
I would suggest starting with 5C and
Okay.
then working our way up. So 5C to 5A.
Okay, close enough? Okay,
Madam Chairman,
yes.
I guess I'm being the cranky old guy today, but we've seen a pattern of public comments and expansions of our meeting packets pretty consistently up until stuff literally showing up on our desk. I'd like to suggest to staff that we consider establishing a cutoff for updating packets with public comments in particular, but also our own material. Out of fairness, not only to the commission in terms of being prepared to act efficiently and effectively, but also in fairness to public commenters. When stuff comes in at the last minute, we don't have a chance to digest it and think about it in advance. I know I felt rushed reading it in real time. And if the concern is about getting public comment on the table, just because they don't have it in before a cutoff time, they still can show up in person and speak to us in person. They also have the ability to come online and speak to us in real time. So I don't think setting a cutoff time for stuff getting into the packet is unfair to public comment, since there's 3 opportunities to do so: before a cutoff date, in person at the meeting, and online at the meeting. I'd like us to consider that.
Mr. Coleman, do you have any comments about that?
I think it's routine for people to submit documents up to the time, and if you don't have time to read it, that I don't think we should force the items to wait until the next week when we're no longer reviewing that issue. There's no harm in bringing it to the Planning Commission. Similarly, it's not typical for people to submit their PowerPoints ahead of time. I know that Planning Commission has been asking for things like that. The PowerPoints and such information typically is providing no new information, but just providing you additional information to help you digest what's in the packet. I do appreciate the comment about like the additional information that was put into the packet yesterday or late on Monday. Yeah, that's material that we'll try to get to you sooner. In this case, though, it is very minor, and walking through it should make sense.
Well, I can tell you from my personal experience on public comment letters that come in and we rush through them, is that, to your point, John, after the meeting, I've lost interest in that subject for the time being, and I'm not going to go back and study them like if I had them a couple of days in advance. I'm repeating myself now.
Well, it would make sense for people to get their materials in ahead of time instead of the day of, especially if the Planning Commission intends to be finishing up with a topic at that meeting. It's not expected that the Planning Commission would say, well, we got some last minute comments, so we're going to delay making a decision on this. That's not necessary to delay just because people submit information late. That would encourage people to submit information late in order to drag the process on. So,
Mr. Ryan?
You know, I would like to support over there on, as far as some of the comments, not necessarily all of them when they're sent to us and brevity where it's simple, single page. When we get over to Mr. Ian's.
Can you
it's
stay
quite-
up with the mic, please?
It gets quite long and emotional in there, and what's that? So, so the concern there is to actually go through and to understand what his concerns are in depth. You know, I'm not prepared for that. But as far as the smaller ones, easier, simpler, I can digest those in a short period of time. But last minute, this is a little bit much. Just voicing my opinion.
Okay, I don't think we actually resolved this request, but let's just think about how, I guess for me, I have a packet in front of me that is 164 pages that I received on Monday afternoon. And for the gentlemen that are working, I'm not sure how you look through that packet and really digest it. Having said that, I know we have staff that are working as hard as they can, and we have, the reason we're having meetings every week is there's a lot of work to do and a lot of things to cover. So I guess let's give ourselves and our staff grace right now, and we'll just do the best that we can. So what page of 164 am I on?
Thank you so much, Commissioner Martin. I just wanted to also point out for the commission, you're probably already aware, but also members of the public, that when we do get public comments, we try to get them to you as soon as possible, either printing out or emailing, but those
You're fine.
is that me? Those comments do get put onto our comp plan website. So the Anacortes page, if you go down to the bottom, there's these tabs, and you can click on comments. And so all of the comments that we receive go here. So if you ever feel like, it's hard to go through each packet to find the comments that came in, on a certain day for a certain meeting, they're all listed here by date, and you can go in and take a look.
That's
So I just wanted to make sure that everybody was aware of that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so get this PowerPoint back up. So I do appreciate you being flexible. As you said, we are all doing our best to get a lot of work done, and so your patience is much appreciated. So the staff was suggesting starting with item 5C. And that was just because that item, the future land use map amendments, was discussed at the last meeting on October 30th. You'll recall that we had the applicants come and present their petitions to the Planning Commission. There was some discussion and questions from the Planning Commission about some of the proposals for the neighborhood commercial concept. You requested, some additional information that staff is working on, and we'll have in the packet that goes out tomorrow for the public hearing. I just wanted to check in to see, I didn't have any specific items to talk about here. I just wanted to make sure, find out from the commission whether there are any other questions about the future land use map amendments or additional information that you would like to have to assist with reviewing the documents, since we have a public hearing coming up on the 13th.
Commissioners, at least where I am, which may or may not be the right place. We have the Resolution 3161, resolution establishing a docket. It's page, cut off, but I think it's 38 of 164. And at the end of that resolution are some attachments. And I think some of those relate to the future land use map. Am I correct?
Yes, so the council resolution adopting the docket for the 2025 plan. Yes, so some of the items are related to the future land use map update, and those, we tried to identify this. I know, I do apologize there. I know that there's multiple different numbering systems going on. One for this resolution and then one for the map that we looked at last time. But I will point out which ones are applicable. This one here, LEG 2024-05, is the unincorporated ACFL parcels, adding those to the urban growth area boundary.
Okay, hang on. Any questions on that one? Nope. Good.
Great, thank you. Make sure I don't miss any here. Here's a list of them. So the LEG-2024-11 was the Scimitar Ranch or Signal Hill request to expand the urban growth area.
No questions?
LEG 2024-12 is Fidalgo Park and Recreation District's request to amend the future land use map for parcels near the pool from RMD, residential medium density, to public.
See no questions?
LEG 2024-13 was Port of Anacortes request to make a change near the airport west of Anacopper Road.
And no questions?
Pardon?
13?
That was 13, yep, 2024-13. LEG 2024-14 is another request from Port of Anacortes to amend the future land use map for parcels around the Cap Santa Marina.
And I have a question on that one. I had a quick conversation with Mr. Coleman, and I guess on that one, I could use some clarity about which parcels and what kind of implications it would mean.
Yes, and I'm happy to kind of just review which parcels and what the proposals are to change. I'm working on the staff report for that particular one as we speak, so I'm not completely done with the analysis.
Okay.
But that will be in the packet that goes out tomorrow to the Planning Commission.
That's fair enough for me. Mr. Ryan?
Yeah, I had a question on, so currently it is not zoned as the marine. It seems like all the other stuff along that area is maintained by the port. Is that particular parcel, because it's not zoned marine? Are we responsible for that little section?
I'm very sorry, I couldn't hear the whole question.
This is,
Sorry for the scrolling, I'm just trying to get to the map.
yeah, right there. Yeah, no, so I know that they have the marine mixed use, and then they have the section there that's just commercial, and they want to convert that over so this way it can be their marine mixed use. But I just had out of curiosity, have the port's been maintaining that piece of property the whole time, or is that city maintained?
So this is all port property. It's all of the property requested to be rezoned, which is shown within this dotted line area. This is all owned by the port. Some of it is currently zoned commercial, that is sort of in this orangish color to the north, and some of it is zoned marine mixed use, which is this bluish area to the south. In 2016, when the comprehensive plan created the marine mixed use zone, this was envisioned, and then in 2019 was when the zoning actually changed to make this area marine mixed use. That zone didn't exist before 2019. Not sure when this was zoned commercial, nor a whole lot of the background. So what they're requesting is to rezone all of this area to commercial marine, which matches the area just north of the Anthony's area. So where the the port building is, under my cursor here, which I understand is probably very hard to see, which has, is that where the harbor master's office is, and the Coast Guard in that building. So everything north of there is zoned commercial marine, as is the Cap Santa Marina itself, the water area. And so they're requesting to change all of these properties that they own to the south to that same commercial marine. We're going to be presenting to you the detailed analysis of the difference between the commercial marine and the commercial marine and the MMU, so you'll know what the differences are between those when we go through. There's not a lot of differences, but there are some key differences. Also, you can see this area down here. I'm not sure if it was clear in the port's presentation. They have the parking lot, the gravel parking lot here that they use for lay down and overflow parking and some various things. But also on the same piece is the Marine Technical College building and its parking lot.
Mr. Dretsky?
At some point, you are going to explain why, or have they explained why they want to change it? They already control it, so it's not like somebody can buy that property and do something else with it.
They did explain in their application, which is attached to these documents here, and at their presentation last week, they tried to explain why they want to change it. So obviously they own it, and they can determine, you know, who leases it and what they want to do with it, but they're bound by what the zoning regulations are. So, for example, in this marine, in the MMU, they can't put a web locker or outside storage. So if they want to use it for that, it would need to be zoned commercial marine. So you'll have a conversation about, well, you know, the Marine Technical College and its parking lot are probably better suited for one zone versus another. So they're requesting a change of the underlying, the change of the zoning so they can use it for marine uses largely. The MMU is called the marine mixed use, but it's not like a working waterfront. It's more like a mixed use and hotel, residential compatible type of use. Commercial is just like everything up and down Commercial Street, that commercial zone. And the commercial marine is really more oriented towards marine use, like working marine, but more commercial marine, different than, you know, the north part of town, which is a different marine. That's the, what do we call that? the MS, manufacturing and shipping. So it's not quite as heavy as the manufacturing and shipping, but more compatible with marina use.
Okay. Is there anything else on the attachment A?
So the next in the line, you want to continue down and then.
Okay, yes, so the next one down is LEG 2024-15. And that is the Port of Anacortes again requesting a change of a property up in the area that John was just talking about, up north, along Guimas Channel, changing it from light manufacturing to manufacturing and shipping.
And I don't see any questions.
Great. The last one is actually does not have a number in this list, but it was part of the 2021 docket that council moved forward to combine with the 2025 update, and that was the request by Tom Skillings to redesignate a portion of property that he owns near 35th and V Avenue, from industrial to residential medium density. I can show the map if needed.
It's looks like we don't have questions.
Great. So I think that was all of the petitions from property owners. The remaining items would just be the proposal by our consultant and staff related to the area on 37th and Commercial Avenue to change the land use designation there to a higher density from residential low density to residential medium density. I can put that on the map.
And that's the one that we
on the
talked
screen.
about with whether to do an overlay or, yeah, that was the Oklahoma, right?
So this was its own proposal just relating to the land use designation for
Right.
housing. And then there's the separate proposal for the neighborhood commercial overlay concept, which has an area proposed within the same location, partially within the same location. So it's two separate proposals proposing two
And
separate
this
things.
is the one that we received public comment for wanting to add one parcel?
Yes.
And how would that work? Would that still be part of our public hearing next week?
Well, we have the request in writing. I do think that the property owner is probably going to attend the public hearing as well.
Okay.
I'm not sure I answered your question, though.
It's not on the docket, is my thinking. So would it be considered as this other lot, would it be considered as part of the plum?
Yes, it would. And I think that the Planning Commission isn't limited to only considering items that are on the docket. You know, there are going to be other ideas and proposals that come out of, comments from members of the public and staff and consultants. And so this, this is one of those ideas. And after the public hearing on the 13th, we are not asking the Planning Commission to make any recommendations on these items. Only the urban growth area boundary adjustments, because those have some timing considerations where we need to continue, either moving those forward or not to go through the county process. All of these future land use map amendments and all of the goals and policies for land use, housing, and transportation, while we're having a public hearing to get public input, that will then be integrated into a future draft of the comprehensive plan. Once we get there, once all the other elements are out and the climate element has caught up with the rest, there will be another draft that there will be more public comment opportunities. So this is really just to get comments and feedback from the public to integrate into the next draft. And not ask.
I have one quick question.
Thank you. Okay, Mr. Dretzky.
While you've got the map up, is it the northeast corner? Like you got your mouse over there? Is it right there? Is that
Yeah.
that's the parcel where the guy wants to
Yes.
double the number of his properties that are in this thing? Okay.
So, Madam Chair.
Yes.
Yeah. So these are in the docket in that they're part of the Housing Action Plan recommendations.
Okay. I do have one other quick question
Yeah.
on LEG 2024-08, which talks about considering pedestrian overlays. Do we have pedestrian overlays? And if so, where are they?
We do not. Let me just find that one. I'm sorry, can you tell me the number again?
Sure. It's LEG 2024-08. The last sentence says, consider pedestrian overlays.
We do not have any pedestrian overlays right now. So this policy would, if recommended and adopted by council, would losing my words, we would begin looking at what that might look like and where those might go, what might be included in a pedestrian overlay. So we don't have anything like that right now.
Okay, thank you. So did we go through the flum? I like saying that word.
I think we did. We made it. Thank you for all of your input and patience in working through that. So if it's all right, we could move on to the next item. So I guess I should just make sure. So I didn't hear any questions that I need to follow up on other than the neighborhood commercial information that I had said.
Which you're already going to follow up on.
Yes.
So yes.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so the next item on the agenda was the 5B, if we're going in backwards order. And that was the land use and housing element goals and policies. So we've talked about those a couple of times. They are presented in the matrix table format, and we've worked our way through. I made notes on those as we worked our way through, and provided you all with an updated spreadsheet with a new column on the end that says Planning Commission meeting notes and staff recommendations. So oops.
So do you want to start, looks like you have the land use goals and policies tracker as the first one.
Yes, I had that as an example for what the documents look like. But actually, my next slide was related to the future land use designations, which is the document that you received in the updated packet.
Okay.
So if it's all right with the commission, I can pull that up and we can walk through that one.
Okay, so we're on this.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. So here is the land use designations. This is part of the land use element, volume 1 of the comprehensive plan. So sorry to be jumping around and scrolling so much. It's a lot of documents to manage on one screen.
Perfectly fine. It's okay.
Oh, thank you. So I just did
And
one.
by the way, you're doing a great job.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Okay, so I wanted to make sure that it was clear what land use designations are and how they work in the comprehensive plan, what the purpose is, and so this slide is just showing our future land use map, which is showing the distribution of the proposed distribution of future land uses over our 20-year planning period. And I realize you can't see the whole thing there, but and then that works together with this table that is also in the comprehensive plan called the land use designations table. And so the map shows visually all of the designations, and then you go to this table, and the table shows shows the purpose of each designation, and also the principal uses, which is meant to be like, here are the proposed land uses over the next 20 years. So not necessarily what is describing what is existing, but what the vision for the next planning period is. Oh, I'm sorry.
Hopefully that's easier for people.
Thank you. So does anybody have, was that clear? Does anybody have questions about how those work together and the purpose of each of those? Okay, good. Thank you.
Not seeing question. Oh, no questions.
Okay, great. So we can move on to the land use designation document, which is right there. I'm just going to stay on this one for a while. Okay, so what you saw before was just the first 3 columns. Staff added this 4th column to try to document what the Planning Commission's discussion or requests for additional information were, and if I got something wrong there, feel free to let me know and I can fix it. But the first question that there was on the residential low density designation was related to accessory dwelling units and whether those accessory dwelling units should be specifically stated in the first sentence here of the principal uses and density. And so staff's taken a look at that, and we think that rather than leaving all of the ADU accessory dwelling units out of all of the designations, that we should specifically include them where those are included in the proposed future land uses for these zones. And so that's what we've done here, is just said that staff recommends revising the principal uses and density to say single-family detached dwellings and accessory dwelling units are the predominant dwelling type, and other dwelling types such as cottage housing may be allowed under certain circumstances. So that's the only change that staff would propose to that section.
Looks good.
Okay. The next one was in the residential low density 2 designation, and this was related to one of the proposed removal of the word of character because of some of the problems that can occur with when that term is used according to the racially disparate impact analysis and guidance. And so I think there was Planning Commission discussion that you felt like it was important to still have some description of what is important about those areas, the residential low density 2 areas. And so we took a stab at adding a term. So we said that these areas are inappropriate for more intensive urban development due to the established form and scale of existing lower density development and or due to the area's separation from transit and commercial services. So that gives a little bit more of an objective, statement about, what it is about that area that makes it inappropriate for more intensive development.
Okay, you got positive nods.
Okay, great. And that is actually the only change, the only changes. Should I go through this slower? There weren't any other changes. Double check. Nope, that was it.
I think, I think we're good.
Okay. So what we'll do is we'll finalize this document. I'll add in here that Planning Commission felt that those changes were acceptable, and we'll put this information on our website for the public hearing so that people can see that information.
Perfect.
Okay. All right, so the next item I have is sorry.
That's okay. Somebody said thank you as they're passing the bread.
Okay.
Sorry.
It's okay. Sorry. All right, so the next one I have is the land use goals and policies tracker. And again, as I mentioned, Planning Commission has talked about these a couple of times. I think we really got into more of the details on October 2nd. And so I've, looked at my notes and wrote down what I thought were the results of, going through this. And so there were a lot of, Planning Commission didn't have any comments or concerns. So I don't know if we want to just go through page by page, if you've had an opportunity to look at these.
I know I just still have a couple of questions, but not too many. My first question is on page 7. for page 17 of 164. Does anybody have a question prior to that? Skip a few pages that way.
Does that look like the right page? What, or I guess what?
That
Paul-
is, yes,
Okay.
that is the right page. Question. You made a comment in the middle of the page there that you're going to use the specific land use designation verbatim when describing areas, which I think is a great idea, clarifies a lot. On the second to the bottom, yeah, kind of just up from where your cursor is right there. Staff recommends replacing medium-density residential zones with residential medium-density designation, which is fine. The question I have on that is, probably goes back before, is about Old Town. Because I don't, for all intents and purposes, I understand that it's a separate designation, but it does seem like a medium-density type place.
Yeah, so I can understand that confusion, and that was, or that concern. And that's, you know, why we are proposing to use the specific land use designation titles. And as you mentioned, Old Town does have its very own land use designation and zoning designation. And so we hoped by using the specific titles for each of those designations that would be clear. We would say, if we meant Old Town, we would say Old Town.
Understood. And but since it's for small lot, single family, and it is for those medium density designations, is there a reason that Old Town gets a buy? Is there a reason that we don't put two designations, both Old Town and residential medium density?
I don't think so. I'm trying to remember if this was part of a housing action plan recommendation. But that's something that the Planning Commission could recommend.
Okay, we have Mr. Ryan.
Yeah, and you know, with Old Town and being fair to everybody else, and with our consultants, always in the conversation about walkability. Obviously, the desire of Old Town is walkability. That being the main focus of how we can get people to lower the traffic and et cetera is walkability. It definitely falls in the criteria, in my opinion.
All right, so there's two voices saying add Old Town. Anybody else want to weigh in one way or another?
Madam Chair,
Mr. Mills?
I did have the same thing circled as well, and my feeling is that whereas I'm not proactive in saying it should be in there, I don't see any reason why it shouldn't be in there. So therefore, I believe it should be in there.
Okay. A thumbs up from Mr. Stoneman.
Question.
Mr. McCombs?
Well, I guess we're talking about new development or new construction, essentially, in a 5,000 square foot or smaller lot, right? Mike, is Old Town, Old Town is, as I'm thinking of it, probably doesn't have a lot of 5,000 foot or square foot or smaller lots that are open for development at this time, right?
Probably true.
So I also wonder why it's not included, but I'm not sure that it's really going to make a big difference.
Yeah, so the Old Town area and all of that kind of northern and central Anacortes area were all platted in the late 1800s, early 1900s with the generally 30-foot wide lots, 30 foot by 100. And so typically what happened is people would buy, 2 or 3 of those and then put a house on top of them. So there are probably parcels existing right now, or lots that do just consist of 3,000 square foot original platted lots, but if the minimum lot size were reduced, then that could provide opportunities for people to, do boundary line adjustments potentially and create another building area if they had 3 lots, say. 3 underlying 3,000 square foot lots. Does that make sense?
Mr. Dretsky?
And they can actually split those lots also, right? 2 people could split a 3,000-foot lot and each pick up 1,500 to add to their property. So you could have 4,500 feet.
Mm-hmm.
You could create 2 4,500-foot lots out of 3 30-foot lots.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah, and there are, for these small lots, just to add, there are some special design standards that do apply to new development for lots that are less than 5,000 square feet that talk about, having covered entry, porch, and garages, in the back, alley access, and some other standards, I think, that would go along with the small lot idea.
Actually, we're going to talk about that with the housing
Yes.
tracker.
Yep.
So it looks like the consensus, if I'm wrong, speak up, but it looks like the consensus is go ahead and add Old Town designation as well.
I've got a question.
Hey, Mr. Dretsky?
We seem to talk a lot about in here about the state law now provides for ADUs on single-family lots. That's the way it reads. Do we need to have any provision in there, but that possibly could be there could be an override to that based on CC&Rs or subdivision rules? I would imagine Portales, San Juan, and Skyline don't allow auxiliary units. So do the covenants? I think I asked that question earlier, and we were told that covenants supersede the law. So should we note in there somehow that if you buy a house at Skyline, you can't automatically put an ADU in there?
I don't think that necessarily belongs in the municipal code because it is a private agreement, private covenant that property owners, when they buy their property, agree to. It's not a regulation. I mean, it is, I know that we, as staff, when we talk to people about, they're looking to buy homes in certain areas, we'll say, hey, make sure that you look at the private CC&Rs for these lots so you know more about what more restrictive requirements may apply. A lot of times there's maximum height that's lower than what the city's zoning would allow. Or like you say, that, not allowing for ADUs or duplexes, where otherwise the city would allow for it.
Okay. I do have a question on the next page. Which I don't know how to tell you, right in the middle, right there. No, next.
Sorry.
Second from the bottom, how about, yes,
Okay.
yes.
All right.
Just a question about what would happen if the last sentence was eliminated on that one? The apply multifamily and commercial design standards to these uses. And the reason I'm asking is because of the comments on the second to the second to the end right there, at the bottom, says senior and assisted living is typically in a multifamily form and does not need special design standards different from the city's current multifamily and commercial design standards. So I just wondered.
Yeah, that does seem contradictory. You'll have to take a closer look at that. I don't know if that addition is intended to just make sure that people are looking at those design standards. Yeah, I'll have to
Maybe.
look more closely at that and
That's
see
fine.
why it's saying two different things.
That's fine. And that one and the one above it both talk about and along certain side streets, which is interesting. Doesn't say which side streets, but it says certain side streets. So just, yeah, seems pretty vague. I don't know. And they both, we can call them by, that's E, townhouses, and F, senior and assisted living.
That helps. I didn't notice those letters were there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
You don't have to change it or anything, I don't think. It just seems strange to have that kind of wording.
I think it's because the way it reads is, keep losing my space on here. Senior and assisted housing, encourage these housing types in medium and high density residential zones and along certain side streets in commercial zones. So we don't want to have it on, we don't want straight residential use on commercial Ave, but maybe tucked back off of some of the the non-arterial streets, it would be a good use to have residential use. So I'm sure that's why it's written that way.
Okay. Any other questions on that page? I think I might be the only one with questions here. Okay, the next page I have a question or two. The top, which says H, live work units. And do we also have live work overlay zones?
yes, we do. There is a live-work overlay zone. I don't know if I can pull up a map
It's
easily.
okay, just, yes, we have them.
Yes, we have one.
Okay, oh, we have one, okay. And the next one down, does crossing it out mean that the recommendation is to eliminate it altogether? On the second column, it's crossed out.
Yes.
Does that mean we keep it the same as it is, or does it mean we get rid of
This
it?
means we delete.
I know.
Yeah, having it crossed out means that we delete it.
Okay, then I would suggest that we don't delete it, but we can change the word character, as Mr. Dretsky said.
I would support that.
Do you have a suggestion for what we could use instead?
I have a couple of suggestions. Yeah, we should bring a thesaurus. One suggestion is the word integrity. So protect the integrity of single-family neighborhoods, or the characteristics instead of character would be another suggestion. Or I put maybe experience. I don't know, that probably doesn't work. Any other comments from the commissioners about that one? Would you like it to be deleted? Would you like it not to be deleted? Oh, we got Chat GPT giving us suggestions. Identity. Reputation, I don't know about that. Integrity, though, is in there. Look at that. Mr. Mills?
I was just going to say, since we're presented with a multiple choice, the integrity word would be
The best one?
I think.
Are you in favor of keeping it in, or
Yes.
yes? Another nod, yes.
Keep it in, use integrity.
Keep it in. Promise I don't have too many more. Okay, the next one that I have is almost to the end. On page 13, or page 23 of 164, is policy LU 8.1.
Didn't pick that up. Which one?
Sorry, policy LU 8.1. And the suggestion is maybe this is a duplicate of LU 5.1. I read LU 5.1 and I think it is a duplicate, and I would eliminate the LU 5.1 and keep this LU 8.1.
Madam Chairman?
Yes.
I looked at that as well, and my reading of the two places it appears is that 5.1 seems to be focusing on pathway or connectivity, whereas 8.1 is focused on access to water and taking advantage of the views of the water. So it can do both things. So I'm okay with it being in both locations.
Okay. Any other thoughts? Mr. Drutsky.
Obviously, that's been a goal for a long time, but I kind of wonder, should it say when possible, extend the Guaymas Trail, meaning like when properties become available and the city can buy them. I mean, I think it's been a stated goal for a very long time, but unfortunately hasn't happened simply because properties haven't been available.
I'd be
I don't
fine.
know. I don't know whether we need that clarification there, but
Yeah. I'd be fine either way.
Was that a clarification to LU 5.1 or 8.1? 8.1. Okay.
Okay, so I guess we could leave it or take it out. Leave it. Leave it? Okay,
We're going to leave it?
I think we're fine. Okay, Mr. McCombs, next thing is for you. Special.
Not sure I did my homework.
Oh, this is on page 15, page 25 of 164, policy LU 10.4. Says the meaning of this policy is still not clear. Commissioner McCombs will provide some draft language.
To table this one.
Okay, next meeting.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
Before we leave that page, I'd also circled, and you've heard it from me before, the reference to bicycling or bikeability. I hope that, I'll make my pitch again, that something like multimodal. You've got chairs, motorized chairs, it's not just bicycles and foot traffic, it's broader than that.
So you're speaking to LU 10.1?
That's where I saw it on this page, yes.
Yes.
I'm repeating myself, I've stated that before.
But that's okay, we have to have repetition. Mr. Ryan?
Yeah, I'd like to support that with the multimodal. I know, and I remember in a previous conversation, then it obviously we'd have to spend just a little bit of time with that, spend a little time with that definition. So, I mean, and I think you brought this up before about the electric bikes, the electric scooters, the variable speeds. So, what's acceptable for those? Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I support, because I mean, we are moving forward with our electric, smaller transportation.
Okay. That's all I have. Any other commissioner have anything else with the land use? Yes, any other pages with the land use?
Page 3, which is 29 of 164. Makers has provided some comments defining what they mean by high opportunity, and I specifically saw in the second paragraph where it said, in other words, the closer a home is to civic and commercial services like transit, schools, job centers, and grocery stores, that's what opportunity is. Instead of being vague with saying high opportunity, why don't we say closer to home, closer the home is to civic? That's a fairly short sentence and is more descriptive than high opportunity.
So you've moved us on to the housing.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay. That's the next place where we're headed.
Yep, you're right.
Yep. No, I think that's fine. I think,
Should we move on? Yeah.
Unless there's other questions, I think we've put the land use to bed, except for one statement next week.
All right.
Now we're on to housing. And Mr. Mills, what page are you talking about? 29?
29 of 164.
Okay.
Have we officially moved on to 5C now?
We have officially moved on to, isn't it 5A? Yes, we're going backwards.
Renumerated to 5C in my head, at least.
Yeah.
Okay.
We have officially moved up the agenda.
I think we're still on B. Because so we just went through the land use goals and policies. The next one would be the housing goals and policies. And then the housing action plan is a separate item.
All right, we are on the housing goals and policies. So thoughts about Mr. Mills' comment about they had to have a definition for opportunity zones?
Could you please give me the number of that one again, the policy number, if you have it?
H-1.7.
Thank you. Okay.
The term high opportunity, I think, appears other places too, but this is where makers provided a long definition and a short definition, and I like the short definition better for its brevity, but yet still explaining what we mean.
So provide for development of multifamily housing in areas that are close to commercial services like transit, schools, grocery stores.
Yeah.
So, okay.
If agreeable to others, I would say not just in this location, but where that opportunity word appears other places, we'd be consistent. But perhaps I'm a lone wolf.
Actually, I put the same thing. I said either eliminate it or define it, one or the other. Otherwise, it's still not clear, and somebody looking at this wouldn't know what an opportunity zone is.
But isn't the sentence written, I mean, and then it says areas close to shopping, employment, so it seems like we're advocating just deleting the high opportunity areas, otherwise you're repeating the same, you're saying the same thing twice. Yeah.
I accept the amendment.
I have a problem with with the makers, the last sentence in the makers definition. It makes it sound like high opportunity areas, we're not going to have health and environmental hazards. Does that mean in non-high opportunity areas, we're going to allow environmental problems?
Yeah.
I mean, I would like to think we have that standard everywhere.
I think it means providing for more housing options outside of areas that are already burdened by environmental health issues. So not focusing higher density and more people living in those areas that have environmental health burdens.
That begs the question, do we have areas where it's considered dangerous, so we don't want to have higher density there?
I'm sorry, I couldn't.
Do we have areas now that are residential that are considered riskier, and so we're trying to avoid having higher density in those areas?
I don't know the answer to that question. I mean, I think that in looking at some of the tools that are coming out of the climate element with the I can't remember what it's called, the Climate Explorer. There's some data that you can take a look at that shows areas broken down by census tract where populations are based on certain data more burdened than others by various factors. And so there are areas in the city that you can identify that have more of those issues, and they're centered, along Commercial Avenue on the eastern side of Anacortes.
Mr. Ryan, I think we should, this is a special meeting, and we'll just talk like normal people talk.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Great. We can just... Yeah, no, I had with makers, I've had a conversation with is it Marcus, I believe?
Makers? Oh, yes. Mr. Johnson?
And because I know they're doing other cities, and I think a couple of the issues that I've had is that we're not a continuous city. We're not connected to another city and another city, where we're kind of our own little, we are kind of an island, which we are, and we're not necessarily butted up with some of the other solutioning that they're doing for those larger density, more populated areas. So, taking that into mind, when we do come to some of these, we don't always have some of the same concerns that he's posed because of our location, our density, and just our community.
May I make a suggestion?
Yes.
So it seems like high opportunity areas isn't like redefining anything. It's like another category that we haven't talked about before that maybe people don't normally think about as simply as shopping or employment. High opportunity, they do define it here as areas that have attributes that have a positive effect on economic mobility, health, and well-being of residents. These areas are often characterized by access to quality jobs, education, healthcare, healthy food, recreation, transit, transportation, options, and lower exposure to environmental health. So that's pretty well defined. There's no reason we can't, in the first instance of high opportunity areas, just include that paragraph after. So like if this is, if this policy H1.7 is the first time, we might leave it as it reads and then take that first paragraph that says high opportunity areas / neighborhoods, blah, 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 and just put it in there because it's defining what high opportunity areas means. I like this because when I read it, it actually made sense to me, and I kind of felt like, oh, okay, let's not just like, let's look for other opportunities, other places where we might have the, where we could put multifamily housing besides just thinking of it as putting it near shopping, employment, services, and other public transportation. This sort of broadens it, and if any of these other areas exist, we might consider putting multifamily in those areas as well.
You almost have to designate parts of the city as a high opportunity area if you're going to do that, right? Would you deny an application because we don't consider this high opportunity? I mean, is that really going to change? I mean, it's a good philosophy, I guess, but does this thing have? Is there a way to actually implement this that would be unbiased and equal?
It wouldn't be used at the time that we're doing applications. This is used for when we're determining where multifamily zoning should be allowed. So that's something that we do at this level, and obviously then the council.
But we're looking at the land use map, and we're applying. We're putting multifamily homes everywhere in the city. I mean, we're adding them to R1 zones. So unless we're going to color the map with areas that are high opportunity and actually like designate areas as high opportunity, I think we're kind of. I mean, makes me feel good. It's a nice philosophy, but what are we doing here?
I guess the other thing that might need to be defined in this one is what is multifamily, because we typically think of multifamily as more than 4 units, but it doesn't say that here. In our development regulations, we'll specify multifamily of 4 units or more. Now, some people may have the perspective that a duplex is multifamily. In planning purposes, we really don't. So that's a really good. We don't think of a duplex as multifamily, but I think for clarification purposes, I could see where people would think a duplex or a 3-unit triplex or even a 4-plex would be multifamily. So we could define multifamily for this also.
So really, I mean, you're talking R3 and R4, right?
Yeah.
So it's such a small kind of part of the city anyway. Like, what's?
Well, multifamily is also allowed in commercial central business district, MMU.
We're talking about 2 square miles here.
Okay, so we're either going to eliminate it or we're going to define it. Mr. Coleman's suggestion is to just add the definition that Makers has given us.
Then from then on, high opportunity areas should be defined, because I don't think there's a definition section to this. If there is, we can put it in there, but.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say that that's something that has come up and might be a good idea to have a glossary in the comprehensive plan. We don't have one right now.
And
that could define
I would
terms like that.
recommend, just the organic outgrowth of this conversation is that even multifamily needs to be defined. So I would define multifamily. I'm not drawing a line in the sand saying, I think, I'm not making a strong recommendation about including high opportunity. I'm not trying to push you to a decision. I'm just trying to clarify, I think, what was intended there and offering a suggestion.
That's fair. I guess I look at this, I look at our map, and I say, we're talking about, we're spending, I don't know that it really matters if we're talking about only the areas where that are zoned for multifamily homes. I mean, it's going to be where they're going to be. I don't know that it's going to really change much where they're actually going to be, right?
Except this language can assist us to change where we the boundaries of our R3 and R4 and commercial and MMU, if that's what the Planning Commission wants to do as an outgrowth of this conversation.
Potentially, but really all those places are already in those places, right? Like the places where we're putting multifamily homes are the only places that you're walking distance to a grocery store. In Anacortes. I mean, it's not a big area. I guess I just don't know that it seems like it's a kind of a pointless exercise. Good intention, but I don't know that it's really going to accomplish anything.
So what are you recommending?
I don't know that it matters. I think you could probably delete the whole thing, and it's not really going to change anything the way anything happens in Anacortes.
I think it's, we're talking about a 20-year planning horizon, and, maybe there aren't any areas that match this description right now, but in 15 years, areas have changed and new businesses have gone in, new transit opportunities are available in certain areas of town, and, maybe at that point it makes sense, and we might, say, oh, look, this might be a high opportunity area where we should think about focusing some higher density uses. So, I guess in other words, it doesn't exist today, but you don't necessarily have to make any changes along with this today. It's to help in the future.
I really like. I really like the idea of adding a glossary. That keeps it cleaner. You can still put the words in here, and people can look at the glossary to see what it means. And I agree, there may be other areas that we need to define. And actually, that brings me to another one that is defined in the language that maybe doesn't need to be as well. So, commissioners, are you okay with a glossary?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And I would like to clarify one thing. For financing purposes, multifamily is always 5 units or more. 4 units falls into a single family category, actually. Appraisals and everything else, the type of financing that's available. So multifamily is not 4, but 5 plus.
And is ours, I'm trying to think off the top of my head, is ours defined as 4 units or more than 4 units?
It's 4 or more units attached.
Sounds like something for the glossary, doesn't it?
Yes,
Well, again,
That actually is defined in the municipal code, but yes.
Multifamily.
Yeah.
On the page prior, policy H1.2, somebody has tried to give examples in this little section, and I'm in favor of shorter is better, and all the examples, we've taken out examples other places. I would take out the examples, just use the first sentence. Promote a variety of housing options that are needed by the different demographic groups and situations in Anacortes. That's really the heart of it, and the rest is all examples.
I like that, yeah.
Okay? You'll probably miss somebody if you use an example, that's true. I don't need to do. Next one, somebody else other than me? Okay, it's me. Next one that I have is on page 30 of 164, policy H 1.9. This one eliminates just the word tiny houses, and I think we should keep tiny houses in as a possibility as demonstration projects. That's my thought. No objection, no strong feelings one way or another. Okay? On that same page, goal H-2, there's some words in here about overtime. Let's see, allow organic change of neighborhoods over time to meet community needs while preventing neighborhoods from experiencing extreme changes in a short period of time. I would just take out the words over time, unless you want to define it, I guess.
I would agree with you on overtime. It's going to happen or it's not going to happen.
Agree. Just delete overtime, that's fine.
Delete it.
Sorry, you said delete it?
Yep.
Okay. I think I didn't put it in the notes here, but some of the feedback that I got from makers was, it's because it is a goal and it's intended to be very broad, and then the overtime is defined in the next policy. They, had suggested that we could either, define it specifically in the goal or not, but felt like it would be fine not to, since it's more specific in the policy, which is usually how those work.
Yeah, the next one down, what do I write here? I'm trying to read my own writing. Maybe use summary language in LEG 2024-06. Oh, that's in the docket where that language is. And it gives a good summary statement there.
Did you say 2024-06?
Yep.
So that, sorry, I can't pull that up quickly, but that would provide the specificity that you're looking for regarding overtime. There's some
Yeah.
language in that policy. Okay.
There's a summary. I can pull it up.
Well, the nice thing about overtime, if we drag on, overtime, we'll get their permits.
So
Not done in a timely manner.
So here's the summary statement. Include new policies reflecting the principles that zoning should allow the next increment of housing in all neighborhoods and should disallow sudden radical change in neighborhoods. That seems to be written much better, and it refers to the exact same thing.
Is it contradictory?
I don't think so. Got that one?
So we're using that language instead of what's written in policy H 2.1. Using the language from LEG 2024-06.
The
Did I
summary,
understand that?
the summary
The
statement.
summary statement, okay,
Yes.
thank you.
I'm looking to see if I see any head nods.
I don't have that in front of me. Can you read that again?
Yes. It says, include new policies reflecting the principles that zoning should allow the next increment of housing in all neighborhoods and should disallow sudden radical change in neighborhoods.
It seems contradictory. Because the first part you're saying, hey, we're going to change things as needed, and then the other one you're saying, but we're not going to change things in a sudden manner.
Yeah.
How do you?
The idea is we're going to change slowly. We're not going to go into a neighborhood and wholesale change the neighborhood.
But as soon as you rezone it, you're wholesale changing that neighborhood, right?
But that's what the docket is.
So with the, sorry if I may.
Go ahead.
So with this, this type of language, we would see implemented through the development regulations potentially. So the next increment of housing, if you have a zone that only allows single family detached, the next increment would be duplexes. And so I think this is saying that the land use designation should be, the purpose and the allowed uses should be written so that duplexes can be a permitted use. Then you, in the zoning code, you would, sorry, I'm losing I might need a break here in a minute. But so in the zoning code, I lost my train of thought, sorry.
That's okay. The main point is we don't want wholesale changes in neighborhoods. That's the big point. And both this docket summary and this housing policy are trying to say that same thing. I just think one is a lot better
So
than
by
the other.
incremental, we're taking it one step at a time. Is that
Yeah.
okay? All right.
Thank you. Thanks for saving me on that one.
Okay. I know I have one more. Anybody else want to chime in? You've got something else? Okay. The one more that I have is on page 32 of 164, policy H 3.5. And, oh, this has got the opportunity. So if we had we're good. If we have a glossary that would define it, we should be fine. The bottom of the page, I'm just still not clear about, but it's probably just me. I don't really understand that.
The educator doesn't
talking about, sorry, we're talking about H-3.7,
Yeah, I don't really get it, but
trying to remember exactly what the conversation was. So explore the establishment of a multifamily tax exemption program as a means of increasing the city's affordable housing supply. Consider the provisions recommended by the Housing Action Plan on residential target area, eligible properties, duration, and other standards. Okay, so clearly we need some help there.
I can, so that second sentence refers to portions of a multifamily tax exemption program, such as you have to define the area in which the multifamily tax exemption can occur, so that's what they refer to as the target area. So you set a geographic boundary inside which you can have a multifamily tax exemption. Duration, let's say duration twice. So
Yeah.
that's an error.
Yeah.
And other standards. Duration, so there's 3 different categories or 4 different categories of duration that you can be eligible for the multifamily tax exemption based on the way that you, based on what you offer so if you offer a lot of guaranteed low-income housing, then you're eligible for a longer duration of credit. So what this is saying, and maybe it's just not super clear, is in the Housing Action Plan, it talks about the multifamily tax exemption and the duration and the eligible properties and such. We don't really need to, in fact, we probably don't want to be bringing up the Housing Action Plan in our comp plan, because if the Housing Action Plan is kind of meant for now, this, I'm not sure if it makes sense for us to be talking about the Housing Action Plan if it's going to be 8 years from now. So I don't see any need for that last sentence, because it just says what this policy is saying, explore establishment of a multifamily tax exemption. And when we do that, of course, we're going to look at all of these items. That is what it is. So it's superfluous to say anyway.
that would be preferable for me. That makes way more sense and not so confusing.
The tax exemption is for that's for the builder,
The developer, yeah.
the developer, okay,
Well, whoever's going to own it,
okay.
because it's a tax exemption for the property owner for the next 8, 10, 20 years, depending on which one they choose. So parsing words there, like the builder might not be the one that owns it.
Fair. Could you just say incentivize multifamily home development?
Well, that's what that multifamily tax exemption does, is it incentivizes the development by offering tax.
That's one way to do it, right? There
Yeah.
could be other ways.
I like explore. That leaves it more open.
And we're interested in a multifamily tax exemption. We've talked to developers. They're not chomping at the bit about it. Some are not showing any interest at all. So I think the recommendation that the council made in the resolution adopting the docket was to look at the multifamily tax exemption after we're done with the comp plan update, just because it's a big lift for us to do, and while we're in the middle of doing the rest of the comp plan update, not sure that it's going to be the best use of our time, especially if developers are not barking up the tree for this to happen. But we do want to look at it in the near to midterm once we get through the comp plan process.
From your preliminary discussions, is the city just going to waive its portion of the property taxes, the annual property taxes for a period of time?
Well, it's a little bit, it's a whole long conversation as far as the details of how that works, so not exactly, no.
I mean, it works better in places where the city and the county are one and the same.
I don't know
Where
about
if
that.
they decide to waive all the taxes, they have the authority to waive all the taxes.
No, you can't, there's not a way, it's a certain amount of tax over a certain amount of time. But, you know, I'm not prepared to talk about the nuances of the multifamily tax exemption because we've put that on the back burner until we're through the comp plan.
Okay, perfect.
Okay. Mr. Mills, do you have any?
I was just going to say, given that explanation, I think leans towards, instead of being specific in their language now, just Will's thing of incentivize. Tax exemption would be one potential.
Well, so we wouldn't, are you suggesting we change it to incentivize the establishment of multifamily tax?
My suggestion is really explore the establishment of incentives for multifamily home development or development would probably be a good word. But that way we're talking, that would be one method of doing it, but maybe there's other ways to do it. I guess I look at affordable housing as a national problem, and it's not something we're gonna, you know, we can build 1 million homes in Anacortes, but I don't think they're gonna be affordable here unless we do something to subsidize them and make them affordable.
Okay, so I'm hearing incentivize from 2 commissioners. Anybody else want to weigh in?
I can go with incentivize, it's good. Sure.
Because it leaves an offer open on the table.
Okay, so what would the wording be exactly?
I feel like you're putting me on the spot again.
No.
I think you could explore establishment of incentives
Oh,
for multifamily home development.
okay.
Can we also, just, it's such as multifamily tax
Including
exemption?
MBT,
Yeah.
et cetera.
Okay, I think we have agreement. That would make it stronger. And,
May I
Does
make a
that-
recommendation
what's that?
before we move on?
Okay,
Can I make a request?
a request. Sure.
So it sounds like we're entirely done with reviewing and recommendations or questions about before you have a public hearing and make your recommendations, except for one item, which we unfairly targeted one planning commission member to suggest language.
I volunteered for that.
He volunteered.
Would the planning commission like to just have that done so we don't have to revisit it in such a fashion next week, so we can just move forward with the public hearing without having to noodle over one item?
I personally would trust Mr. McCombs. Whatever he wants to write there would be fine with me.
I don't want to prolong any proceedings, but I'm happy to take a turn on language there if it helps the.
Yeah, if you could have it to us.
By
We
tomorrow.
were gonna publish tomorrow.
Okay.
So, can I request strongly that we just try to figure it out now so we can get it out there for public review when we publish tomorrow?
Certainly.
Well, I think he's saying all of us, not just you. If we do it now,
Yeah.
we'll
So-
help.
so-
We'll help.
So you guys are going to help me with my homework.
Yes, we will help. So, yeah.
All right, let's go back to that page.
Does staff already have something drafted? Or they were leaning on?
Well, we've done a good job of just looking at ones that we weren't prepared to discuss tonight and coming up with good solutions that everybody was everybody found.
I guess what I
appealing, so-
remember about this one was it wasn't clear to me what the end state, what the goal was, what they were really trying to accomplish with the goal. And so it's almost, if we're drafting new language for it, we're almost determining what we think that goal should be.
So this is page 25 of 164, policy LU 10.4 at the bottom of the page.
Thank you for navigating us to that.
So the recommended wording, increase access to recreational amenities and activities for all Anacortes residents, workers, and visitors, including at public facilities which are located to serve the general public.
And, you know, I do recall this conversation. It was written so poorly that nobody had any understanding about what it meant. It would not be necessary, since it doesn't mean anything, and we don't know what we're trying to achieve with it. I think it's actually pretty reasonable for us to just delete it entirely, instead of trying to imagine what it's supposed to mean and make something up.
I like that suggestion.
Okay. Nodding heads to delete it.
I don't think it would detract from the document if this one was not included.
Now, would the people at the pool say something different?
We'll find out if they comment during the,
Yeah.
and at that point, you know, we might be open to them, you know, any recommendations for better language.
Okay. Everybody okay with just deleting it? Then we're totally done?
Yeah,
No,
Two elements?
I have a question.
Oh, okay.
On page 33 of 164, policy H-3.10, in the meeting notes and recommendations, it says in the sentence without the last phrase regarding addressing racial disparities, especially in light of RDI report findings. What did we decide? Are we going to delete that last sentence or not?
I say yes.
The center column still has it in, that's why I was.
Just to clarify on how this table was developed, I didn't make any changes to the left-hand columns, so I could add some more, a more definitive statement that Planning Commission recommends removing the last sentence.
Well, I thought the comment in the yellow column was referring to the first draft proposed policy revision in the, I'll call it the center column.
Yep.
And that's where the last sentence is in blue.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That I thought was being debated as to whether or not to just delete that blue part and put a period. I don't think we ever reached a conclusion.
Right. Understood. My recollection was that we did.
To delete it or-
Maybe the note here isn't, definitive enough. That we
delete the and addressing racially disparities and past patterns of segregation and exclusion. That's what I think
Yeah,
should
well-
be taken out.
Right.
Yeah, I'll agree with staff's recommendations on that.
Well, this was Planning Commission's recommendation at the last meeting on the 9th. So,
And the reason is, if you look at this is more than anything boilerplate language, but if you look at the racially disparate report, it does not show these past patterns of segregation and exclusion, except for, I think, something back, way back, there was some little area that I don't know if it was in the HOAs, I can't remember. Anyway, it didn't really apply to us, and I think it's kind of inflammatory.
Absolutely.
So that brings up an interesting point about formatting. What Libby's
Seattle.
gone through great pains to do is to show in one column what it originally is, in the second column what it was proposed by our consultants, and then as the Planning Commission has made recommended changes, she has then included in the final yellow column what your recommendations are. And then that third column is language provided by makers to explain why they made the changes in column 2. So at the risk of making this harder on Libby, I'm wondering if when we present for the public hearing next week, do we have to change this table to show as the Planning Commission has recommended instead of how our consultant has recommended? Is that going to be conceptually and time-wise very hard for us, Libby?
Why would we do that?
Oh, just to be clear that, so for example, what we just talked about here, in the final column it says, delete that last segment that says, and addressing racially disparities and past patterns of segregation and exclusion. But as someone is just casually reading down the list, they're not seeing that change made physically in the document. They're just seeing notes. So it might be easier for people to see it as the Planning Commission has recommended it.
could we just put it in the Planning Commission recommendation column, the full policy as they've recommended it?
Yeah, we could do that too. That's a good idea.
So the question is, when we publish to the public tomorrow, do we show it with already implementing the Planning Commission versus just giving the public what our recommendations were?
So, well, I think we just came to a conclusion that in the first column, we'll have what it originally said. In the second column, it's what the recommendations of the consultants were and what's been out there for review. And then in the yellow column will be the actual Planning Commission's recommendations. And most of it's going to say no comments, but the ones like this one, for example, will just put the language in there with as recommended by the Planning Commission.
I think that's what you did, even 2 up from that one for 3.9. So
Sorry?
I think that's what you did in 3.9.
Yeah,
So I think just use that as the format.
yeah, I think it might have been a little inconsistent in how I was showing it, but I'll update it so it's consistently shown throughout.
Great.
Good point. Okay. Now, are we on to 5A?
Madam Chair, could I
Yeah.
request that we take a quick break?
Perfectly fine. How long do you want?
5 minutes?
All right, it's about 8 o'clock. We'll reconvene at 8:05.
never put it there.
There we go. Let's come back to order here. We have one more thing to talk about, and that's the Housing Action Plan, which is item 5A. A discussion of the strategies. Were you going to talk about this at all?
Yes, I'm sorry. I'm just trying to get my, get the documents up that I was going to refer to. I think we need 2 more screens here. So this agenda item is the staff's recommendations on the Housing Action Plan strategies that were recommended by City Council to be reviewed in detail by the Planning Commission as part of the 2025 Comprehensive Plan update. And so the Planning Commission broke into teams to each take on a couple of the recommended strategies. And city staff also on this document that's in your packet made some recommendations regarding the implementation of each of the strategies. And so I'm not sure, we didn't talk about this ahead of time, but how we want to go through this, and how the expectation was that the Planning Commission members were going to kind of report out and let us and the public know what you think and what your recommendations are, and then maybe we can have a discussion from there, if that makes sense.
So I did a little looking into the history of this Housing Action Plan, and I thought if it's okay with the commissioners, I would just do a quick summary of how did we get here and what are we trying to accomplish. So in the beginning of 2022, the city staff began to work with Makers Architecture and Urban Design to develop a draft housing action plan. The work originated with the HACS City Council Committee in February of 2022 using a Washington Department of Commerce grant. The consultant group began with an existing conditions and housing needs analysis report. That's dated 10/19/22. And if you haven't looked at that, I would suggest it's very helpful to look at. And I pulled out a couple of things that the Makers consultants found about existing conditions here. They listed the population as of April 2022 as 17,880 residents with an annual growth rate of 1.7%. They said that the unoccupied housing units have remained relatively steady since 2012, near 8.5%. However, the vacancy rate based on dwelling units on the market was at 1.1% for homeowners and 1.9% for rental properties. So shows which we already know that it's really hard to find a place to rent or to buy in Anacortes. They said that 5% is the rental vacancy rate that they would say is a natural vacancy rate. They talked about income, and about a third of Anacortes households were making less than 80% of the area median income. And quote, "This demonstrates a need for lower income housing, especially for renters." Couple of other just facts from this existing conditions report. About 10% of those under age 35 are under the federal poverty level in Anacortes, and 13% of the renters 65 or over are also in that federal poverty level. About 37% of Anacortes residents commute less than 10 miles to work, and another 30% commute more than 50 miles to work. There was a lot of other facts in here. The last one I would tell you is since 2016, housing production averages 101 units per year, 29 units below the average needed to meet growth targets. So this existing conditions report and a draft housing action plan was presented to the Planning Commission on 10/22/22. And it was presented to us as an information item. Mr. Dretsky might remember that. I had to go back to look to see when did we ever hear about this, and that was the one and only time that it came to the Planning Commission, just as an information item. The stated purpose of the Housing Action Plan is, quote, "to identify ways to encourage construction of both affordable and market rate housing in a greater variety of types, densities, and cost levels." They have a stated vision. Here's the vision. 4 points. First of all, everyone who works in Anacortes can afford to live in Anacortes if they choose. Second, children who grow up in Anacortes can afford starter homes in the town. Third, seniors have options to gracefully age in place in the community near essential services and caretakers. And fourth, local housing contributes to climate change and sustainability goals by allowing people to drive fewer miles and live near jobs and daily services. So that's the vision of the Housing Action Plan. And after a public hearing by the City Council, the Housing Action Plan was adopted by the City Council January 17th, 2023. So this plan is meant to inform the 2025 Comprehensive Plan update. It is to be viewed as a menu per the council docket that we just looked at, LEG 2024-20. So that's important to remember, I think. It's a menu. So our goal tonight in reviewing the HAP recommendations is to find items that will increase housing diversity and specifically allow for a greater amount of affordable housing. The second goal of increased density within our city should be tempered by two things. First, our land capacity analysis tells us, quote, "Anacortes has a sufficient zoned capacity to meet both its overall housing target as well as its housing targets for low, moderate, and high-income households." The second goal of increasing density also should be tempered by the fact that our citizens have clearly stated they are not interested in any wholesale changes to the look or feel of the community, as actually we've just talked about. This sentiment is echoed in the comp plan and development regulations periodic update. We just looked at LEG 2024-06, which states, quote, that new policies reflecting the principles that zoning should allow the next increment of housing in all neighborhoods and should disallow sudden radical change in neighborhoods. So as we look at these items, a couple of things to keep in mind. First of all, will the change increase the possibility of more affordable housing? Second thing, will the change change the types of available housing? And third thing, will this change be accepted by our community? The whole idea of being incremental. So with that, if you have any questions, we assigned ourselves different items of the housing action plan with the thought that when you have a big elephant to eat, you take it one section at a time. And it looks like the first section was, and these items were given to us by the planning committee of the city council. So they did a winnowing work, taking out some of the suggestions that they thought would not apply in our community. And we have the planning department also doing a narrowing down, a winnowing down. And now we have, hopefully from commissioners, the idea of which ones will be effective in either increasing the affordable housing, or which ones would be effective in diversifying the housing stock. I think, and then which ones will our community accept? That's my thoughts. The first section was given to Stoneman and Dretsky. So how would you like to go forward?
I think Frank's got the first couple, and then I'll take the next couple. This is the way we did it.
Cottage housing is proposed to be a new permitted use in the zone. Comprehensive plan says single-family detached dwellings are the predominant type in this area, and cottages satisfy the criteria. Further, the plan explicitly says cottage housing may be allowed under certain circumstances. Currently, the comprehensive plan allows up to 4 units per gross acre via a special review process, which is undefined. The option and recommendation to allow 4 units per acre through a comprehensive plan amendment. Building more units per acre should impact affordability. 2.1.3, triplexes and townhouses are proposed.
Hang on, so on 2.1.1, are you saying that we should, that would be one of the recommendations we should move forward or recommend to the city council moves forward?
Yes.
Okay.
Building more units per acre should impact affordability with minimal impact on traffic and in the environment.
Okay.
1.3, triplexes, townhouses are proposed to be a new permitted use in this zone, provided they meet proposed unit size limitations, lot dimension requirements and standards for open space, parking configuration, and architectural design will help ensure that triplexes and townhouses will be of equivalent curb appeal, trying to avoid the word character, with the existing homes in this zone. In order to enhance visual impacts, townhouses and triplexes will only be allowed on lots with alley access. Units will be limited to 1,200 square feet of gross living space and are considered a half unit for density purposes.
And so, yes or no? That's one.
That's the recommendation.
That's a yes.
The increased density will provide less expensive housing options for their tenants, and because they are often infill, they will be closer to shopping, jobs, and schools. That's the recommendation is to allow that.
Okay.
1.5, group
So,
living.
Actually, can I just pause for a second? So is that specifically, is that different than what's written in the HAP? Just so as we're trying to as we're trying to put it down the way you've written it, I don't know if we're supposed to be taking word for word what you've written as a recommendation.
I'll just give you a copy of what I typed if you want.
Well, so what we're tasked with by the
Coming up with a recommendation to recommend.
to recommend whether this is part of the menu that we should follow up on.
That one is very close to what the HAP said. alleyway
Yeah,
access.
we're, so I guess what we're thinking is you're making a recommendation, and it'd be nice to know if it's basically what the HAP said,
Yeah,
or if
it
you're
was.
making additions or subtractions to what the HAP
No.
says. And then, is the planning commission going to discuss each of those later, or when we move on from each number here, like from 2.13 to 2.15, are we to just presume that the planning commission is okay with the recommendation that was presented?
What do you say, gentlemen?
I think we should have a discussion as a planning commission. I mean, I'm interested in the recommendations, but
Why don't we go through, given the time, let's go through and get the recommendations. And then there may be some that we want to talk about. How about that?
And, given the time, there's no way we're going to get through the HAP all of the planning commission's HAP recommendations today. This is an item that it doesn't need to be done. We just started it early because it's relevant to the things that we've been working on. So there's, like, if you want to work on this, like every planning commission or every other planning commission until we get through it, that's fine. There's no need to get through this rapidly. We'd like to get it done with, obviously, but there's no pressing need. This is going to come back to you, with the greater recommendations at some point after you make your recommendations on this anyway.
All right, well, let me clarify what we currently have. Currently, the comprehensive plan allows up to 4 units per gross acre via a special review process, which is undefined. And so the recommendation is to do away with that special review, but have requirements that they have to be the garages have to be off of an alley for appearance sake, and then the square footage limitations on per unit, and then the fact that they would be considered for density purposes, how they calculate. So those things are defined per the recommendation.
Okay, so your team's recommendation is to follow the recommendation of the planning department for 2.1.3.
Yes.
Got it. And also per
That was,
2.1.1.
2.1 also, yes.
Okay. And what about 2.1.5?
We're just getting there now. Gross living, barriers to the development of group living, gross living. Probably some places that is that's a description. But anyway, barriers to development of group living uses should be reduced to encourage their development. In particular, the HAP existing conditions and housing needs analysis report and the public engagement report both found a strong need for assisted living facilities and nursing homes, especially in our community, I think. Senior citizens comprise much of the population, and they and their families would like to have available housing nearby for them. In order to streamline the permitting process and reduce uncertainty, possibly the same streamlined process should be incorporated for rooming houses. So basically, the recommendation is to streamline the process.
Okay, so under, I'm not sure, Ms. Gray, the green writing on the title wording, I'm not sure how that's the same or different from the recommendation green writing.
Yeah, thanks. So the writing under the title column is just attempting to further summarize what the HAP recommendation is, give more information about what was recommended in the HAP. And then the recommendations from the planning department, also in green, say either that staff recommends what the HAP recommended, or if there were options provided or different considerations, we wrote down what staff would recommend for those two. So sorry, to clarify, the left-hand green writing is just trying to summarize the HAP recommendation.
Okay, So both are recommendations. One is a summary of the recommendation.
I was just trying to provide more information instead of just the several word title for people
Okay.
that are not familiar with, you know, with the HAP or aren't looking back and forth between the HAP and this document.
So, Mr. Dretsky, your team is recommending
The team is made up of one person.
the team of one person.
So our discussions were very short. We had almost no debate
You
and very
agreed?
little disagreement.
You agreed with yourself. Your recommendation is for 2.1.5 to change group assisted living from conditional to permitted in R3, R3A, and R4A,
Yes.
and also to include, I think I heard you say, rooming houses?
Yes.
Okay. And also the recommendations from the planning department? You could consult with your team.
Oh, yeah, Libby.
Sorry. So the planning commission, or planning department was recommending that for the lower density zones like R3 and R3A, that there be a maximum occupancy, just to make sure that the scale of the facilities is consistent with the surrounding neighborhoods. And these are just from the HAP as well, but the 1,000-foot separation or spacing between assisted living facilities, and then some design standards to make sure that special features that are common to these types of facilities are also compatible with surrounding neighborhoods. Is that the help you were hoping for?
I'm sorry?
Was that the help you were hoping for?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you. If it wasn't, I wasn't going to tell you. 1.6, adult family homes. Will the state law change the maximum beds from 6?
Nice. So your recommendation, is that the same as the HAP? Is it the same as the planning departments, or is it something different
Same
as the
as the
HAP?
planning department.
As the planning department, okay.
Ready for 1.6? Adult family homes. Prior to 2020, the max a home could have was 6 clients or beds, and that's been up to 8. Consider amending the requirements for adult family homes to be located in single-family homes. Obviously, they take fairly large homes in order to do that, but the enabling legislation only requires that adult family homes be treated as single-family homes for regulatory purposes, not that they be physically designed as detached single-family homes. Pretty much wide open on that they can go into existing homes if you can find one big enough, I guess, and it'd be designed specifically for that.
So what are you recommending?
Well, we have to go along with the law, so that we have to change our rules to allow for 8 beds, and that they don't have to be physically designed for that single purpose. I mean, you could put them into a large home.
So you're recommending follow the planning department's
Yes.
recommendations? I'm gonna try and get through this group, and then I think call it a night. If that's okay with you guys?
No, Libby wants to stay longer.
Okay, let's keep going. 2.1.7.
Okay, the other half of the team. So this was prohibit new large lot, single-family uses in medium and high-density zones. I think, you know, obviously the benefits of that are pretty straightforward in terms of you do have you will force more housing which should mean affordable housing and more people in the spaces. I mean, negatives to that, of course, is that you're going to have with any of these, like more traffic, lack of privacy, you know, people crammed in, that type, just infrastructure being available in those areas to support that. But I think we would do that. I liked the planning department's recommendation there, that instead of just outright prohibiting, just getting the minimum density. So I'm recommending just using their planning department's recommendation on that.
Okay.
Their recommendation is to prohibit.
No, the title of it was prohibit, but their recommendation is actually just to instead of just outright prohibiting, they said establish a minimum density for lots that are greater than 6,000 square feet, greater than or equal to. Sorry.
What does that mean?
So I guess I can turn it back over to Libby, and you want to define that better? I just took it to mean like, honestly, I just figured that was more relaxed than an outright prohibition, so that's why I was like, okay, yeah. So.
Sure, and just to clarify, staff's recommendation would be to only apply that minimum density in the R4 zone, which is the high density residential, and not the R3A zone. So the reason for this recommendation is that I think it will be very difficult and maybe not something that everybody is comfortable pursuing to just outright prohibit new single family homes. And that was also some feedback that the Council Planning Committee and City Council gave us as part of this recommendation for which of these to look at. 6,000 square feet in the R4 zone is pretty standard lot size because, you know, as I mentioned, the old plats are 3,000 square feet, and combining two of those, you get 6,000. I did do some analysis looking at how many lots are 6,000 square feet or greater, and there's quite a few in R4. Applying the minimum density requirement to a 6,000 square foot lot gives you a duplex. So it just means that any lot that's bigger than a 6,000 square feet has to have at least a duplex on it. And it could potentially be more in the R4 zone.
So is your recommendation slightly different from the Planning Committee's recommendation?
I don't have that in front of me. I think the Planning Committee's recommendation referenced a maximum lot size.
It's right in the column before yours.
Oh,
Says
I do have that.
rework as a maximum lot size and apply to consolidation via BLA,
Yes,
whatever that is.
our recommendation is different than
Yeah.
the Planning Committee.
Yeah.
And
I'm still sticking with, I think the planning department's
Okay.
recommendation makes more sense.
Okay.
I'm slow. I still don't understand so it's anything, you can build a single family home as long as it's on a lot less than 6,000 square feet.
And also, that's just talking about the R4 zone was the point. It would be R3
It only
and
apply to the
R4
R4
for
zone.
the other.
So you could still build a single family home in the R4 zone
correct.
if it's on a lot less than 6,000
Smaller
square
than,
feet.
yeah, 6,000 square feet.
How many instances of this? You said that there's still lots available there.
There's still what?
There's still buildable lots in the R4 zone.
Not many.
I guess, are you asking, like, would you like to just outright prohibit? Is that?
I guess
where
I kind of lean the other way. I don't. I think I understand the city has goals for what happens in that area, but if I were someone who owned property there and I had plans for what I would plan to do there, and now the city is telling me I have to do certain things, that seems like overreach to me.
So,
I guess
what-
why have medium and high density zones if that doesn't mean anything though? I mean, isn't that?
I mean, it's allowed, doesn't mean it's required, and this would be requiring it. It's a goal of the city, but I still have.
So let's keep going and put an asterisk by that one, because that will be one we
Yeah,
want
I'd like
to
to pipe
talk
in
about.
just on my opinion on what you just said, if I bought a lot 10 years ago thinking I'd build a home on it, and now the rules change, and all of a sudden I find out I can't build my single-family home on it, I don't think I'd be very happy. I think I would feel like the rug had been pulled out from underneath me if you tell me suddenly, well, you can build a duplex on it if you want to live in one of the units. Wait a minute, that wasn't my plan.
Okay, let's keep going. We can talk about these when we come back. That's why I bring you banana bread.
Okay, allowing duplex cottages in all zones where cottage housing is available. Honestly, I didn't really see any big issues with that. I think we all know what duplexes are, and unless you just think they're bad for any reason, I wouldn't add a whole lot to that. I said I'm okay with the make changes as per HAP recommendations.
Okay.
And then the next one is the single room occupancy housing. This is the one where actually I thought we would anchor, to be honest, because, and I'll probably need help, Libby, on your all's recommendation with this, because looking at what I saw with the single room occupancy housing, if you're not familiar with what that is, I think that could be like a big building where everybody has like their own little room in it, like there's like a kitchen in the middle and everybody has rooms off of it and whatever else. And I know we don't use the character word, but it's hard for me, one, to picture that here in our town. And then two, I feel like that would require a lot of oversight to make sure like cleanliness and living with people like that as adults, because I mean honestly, I'm picturing college dorm rooms type of thing, and so I don't, unless your recommendation is telling me that this is a have to type of thing, I would actually prefer not to have single room occupancy housing in Anacortes.
Looks like it is.
Yeah, so there's a new state law
Okay.
effective in June of 2024 that basically requires cities to allow co-living housing, which is defined in the RCW, and I don't think I pulled it out.
Isn't it
For this.
for unrelated people?
Pardon me?
Isn't it for unrelated people? Definition for living in this kind of housing?
I don't
Don't
recall.
look
I
it
don't
up.
think it gets into that level of detail of whether they're related or not, and I don't think that we can regulate that anymore, like as far as definition of family, and
Okay.
there's some,
If you scroll down.
oh, sorry. Yeah, I think when the HAP was written, yeah, it was before this new state law regarding co-housing, so that's, or co-living.
The IMPC, I believe, regulates the room sizes. So that would be, wouldn't that be the definitive requirement?
So, yeah, living housing would have to comply with the building and fire
Yeah,
codes.
it's 70 square feet for a single. If you're gonna have two people in the same room, it's 100 and something.
Yeah, I don't know if there are special building code provisions specifically for co-living. I did not look at that. But basically, the new state law requires allowing this type of housing option as a permitted use on any lot that allows at least 6 multifamily residential units. So, there are only certain zones that do allow for that level of density. So that's where we would be required to allow that type of housing option.
But your next sentence says cannot require minimum room dimensional standards larger than required by state building code.
Yeah,
That's out of the statute.
yeah.
Okay.
So did I have any choice on my recommendation then? I mean, that's okay. I'm just saying, like, Yeah, I
Yeah,
mean,
we are pretty limited based on the state law as far as what can and can't be required. I mean, I think we can, look at, we can apply design standards, and they would be applicable provided, that they're the same as are applied to other types of housing in that zone. Parking, I didn't pull out the full state law, but I think this is one that we should, that I can bring back more details on, and we can go through and look at
Well,
what our local options
I was
are.
going to say, again, if we, I'm fine recommending that we follow the law. I just,
It's always a good,
So I've pulled up the statute. It's barely a page long. It's not too intimidating. In the recommendation document, you can see that it's actually linked. So when you open it when you open the electronic version, you can click on the link to the RCW, and you can take a look at it for yourself. It's in the GMA 3670A .535 co-living housing.
I understand what you're saying, but I guess I'm just saying, we can follow the law. It's okay. I'm not trying, so I just, my research into the single room occupancy did not make me excited about having that in Anacortes. If you're telling me that the law says I have to, then okay.
Okay, and then that last one,
That was it.
2.1.10, supportive housing is also required. No, you didn't.
yes.
You didn't, because it was, on the first sheet, it was shaded out because it was one of the requirements. So I think, unless you really want to continue, I think we're done for the night. Well, you can't knock out 2.6 if you haven't knocked out 2.3, 2.4.
So
Otherwise, it's going to be too confusing.
I missed what what the Planning Commission recommended for 2.1.10.
The recommendation is that's required by law. So whatever the law says, that's why the Planning Committee did not include that in our work assignment.
So similar to 2.1.9, we just want to follow the law.
Yeah, it did include 2.1.9, but when they gave us an assignment, 2.1.10 was not part of it.
Yeah, I'll have to go back and look at that. I think that it was that it's mandatory, required by state law.
Right.
But I think there still might be some local options that the Planning Commission may want to weigh in on.
Okay.
So,
So then let's come back to 2.1.10.
Yeah.
That's where we will come back again. And what else do we have on? We have Planning Department update on our agenda.
Madam Chairman, while he's walking up there, the 2.6 that I referred to that we could knock out really quickly is still missing the Planning Department recommendations.
Oh.
So our comments would be limited to the Council Planning Committee.
Okay. Which one is it?
2.61 and 2.6.3. The recommendations from Planning Department says.
Oh, still being developed.
Being developed. We're prepared to comment on the left-hand column, but not the right-hand column until it exists.
Okay. Okay.
All right. Well, thank you. We should probably talk about our upcoming agenda. So we're not going to have housing action plan continued review at our next planning commission meeting, because our next planning commission meeting, we're having, as you know, a public hearing on the land use, housing, and transportation goals and policies, the FLUM, and then making a recommendation just on the UGA expansion related to items. And we're also having a public hearing for a shoreline substantial development permit. And that's going to be over $1 million, so it's a recommendation from the Planning Commission to the council, not a decision. Last week you made a decision, this time it's going to be a recommendation. And then we're anticipating not having a November 20th Planning Commission meeting, but we're leaving that open as an option depending on what happens at the November 13th Planning Commission meeting. We were kind of hoping to give the Planning Commission a nice break ahead of Thanksgiving, and then Thanksgiving we'll have a break, and then our next scheduled Planning Commission meeting is December 11th, I believe, 11th, right? And unfortunately, I think we're gonna have to have something on that agenda. We would have liked to have given you that break as well, because I know you've been working really hard where you've been having meetings every week, and that's a lot. And so we wanted to give you a good break, but I think we're probably gonna have some agenda items on November 11th. December 11th, thank you. It's been a long several weeks for us too. And depending on if it's a light agenda, we might throw the housing action plan on there just to make sure we're using your time well and not just having a short meeting. So that's what's coming up. The countywide planning policy recommendations that you made on last week, we have included on the November 19th council agenda. So that'll be on the council for their review of your recommendations. That's the day after Veterans Day. That'll be the Tuesday meeting. And wanted to mention, for those that didn't see the city council meeting a couple of weeks ago, the city was presented with an award for the Housing Action Plan Smart Communities Award in the Smart Housing Strategies category. So we received this governor's award for the Housing Action Plan because the high level of public review that it went through. There was numerous surveys over, I think there was, for the housing survey that went out to the public, we had over 1,000 respondents. So it was a lot of work, and the state recognized us for it. So I'll just read the quick thing that I read at the city council meeting. I won't read what that was presented to us by a member of the Department of Commerce, and they made some nice comments. If you're interested, suggest that you watch the city council meeting. But in January 2023, the city of Anacortes adopted a housing action plan, the goal of which is to encourage construction of additional affordable and market rate housing in a greater variety of housing types and prices that are accessible to a greater variety of incomes. Preparation of the HAP, Housing Action Plan, involved extensive public outreach that included stakeholder interviews, community survey, planning commission public meeting, city council public hearing, city webpage that made available related documents and allowed for early and continuous public participation and public comment. So we were recognized for those efforts by the state. The governor's Smart Communities Award recognizes outstanding efforts of local communities and their partners throughout the state, creating vibrant and livable communities by achieving the goals of the Growth Management Act and other community development objectives. The award recognizes local governments whose exceptional planning efforts have significantly enriched their communities in the areas of job growth, economic development, housing affordability, that's what we got ours for, homelessness, parks and recreation, transportation, and sub-area development. These achievements are outstanding models for Washington's local governments. And then that's when Ann Fritzl, with the housing program manager with the Department of Commerce, came up and presented the city council and the mayor with this award, and as well as certificates for the council and mayor and Don Miesemer and Joanne Stewart, who all worked on this project, and of course Libby Grage, who worked on this. So we're very proud of our smart governor, our smart award here, Smart Communities Award, and just wanted to make sure that you're well aware of the fact that we got it, and now you're part of enacting the recommendations of the HAP. So, and thank you to Chair Martin. Give yourselves a hand. And I appreciate Chair Martin presenting the background of it. That was well put and well researched. Thank you. And that's all Planning Department has for the Planning Commission tonight.
And without further ado, it is, what is it, 8:54. We are adjourned.